Welcome to Relentless Pursuit with Marjorie Dudley. Real conversations with entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders who refuse to settle. This isn't about overnight success. It's about the decisions, discipline, setbacks, and standards that shape extraordinary results. If you're building something that matters, you're in the right place.
Hello, and welcome to Relentless Pursuit with Marjorie Dudley. I am so excited for my guest today, Marci LaRouech. She is the CEO and owner of CHR. Welcome, Marci. So glad to have you.
Thank you, Marjorie. Appreciate it. Excited to be here.
I just loved your story because you talked about how you have always dreamed of owning your own business. That fire, that spark has always been in you. Just tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about where you first noticed that was what you were called to do and how that process unfolded.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to. It's been almost a lifelong dream. It's hard to kind of pinpoint the exact moment when it started for me. But you know, my parents were both teachers, but my mom had a side hustle and she had a screen printing business in our small town in Michigan. And that, you know, she owned it. She operated it. She hired students, you know, like in the summertime to print T-shirts for the local 5Ks, all that good stuff, right? And that paid for our house renovations, my college education, summer vacations. I mean, it was a legit business, but she never saw herself as an entrepreneur. But like, I kind of was like, that's pretty cool, right? I respected that. I understood that the freedom that gave us to be able to do so many things with our family. But as I got out into the real world, right, after college and trying different things, I started to realize that at first, gosh, if I wanted to own my own business, if I want to be the leader of a company, there are only two paths. Either I go up and, into the ranks and work my way up. I was at Accenture, was my first job out of college, and saw that the person ahead of me was in that role for 12 years, and they were just waiting for the top person to retire before they could move up. And I was like, I'm not waiting that long to become the leader of a company. Or you have to start something yourself. And for me, I just could never come up with what was it that I was passionate enough to want to start on my own. What would I be a founder about, right? And that just, I had different, I thought I tried different ideas, things like that, but that just never, as you said, sparked me, right? Like that wasn't interesting for me. So about 15 years ago, I was really fortunate to be hired by a company, ProService Hawaii, out in Honolulu, and the owners of the company at the time had acquired it. So this was the first time where I found out that you could buy a business. There's a third path. Yes, there's a third path. And truly, I mean, now thinking about it, I'm like, duh, right? But, as a mid-20s or, early career person, I had no idea that was possible. And so started to realize and learn more about this process of, entrepreneurship through acquisition, right? So searchers, people who go out and, maybe raise a fund, get investors, or with their own money, go out and buy businesses and then grow those businesses, whether that's for a long-term hold or to sell them as they grow it. So 15 years ago was when I got that initial spark of like, oh, wow, there's a third path. And that is one that sounds really interesting to me. Because what I was finding at that part in my career was I was really good at executing. I was really good at the growth phase, the scaling phase. I wasn't great or didn't have a lot of passion about the early stage company because I tried it at a couple startups as a joiner of a startup, right? And I just didn't feel as much passion about it. But when I got to the ones that had some established structure, product market fit, client base, but then wanted to grow and scale, that's where I really got a lot of excitement. So that's where kind of those two things coming together and merging kind of in my mid-career, early to mid-career, was what kind of set me on this path to acquiring CHR 15 plus years later.
You get wide-eyed about, I'm going to go find a business that is already past maybe the first 5 years, it's more established, sure, and then I can really take that to the next level.
Yeah, that was the concept for sure. But even then, when I first started learning about it, whether it was true lack of confidence or experience, imposter syndrome, I don't know what it was, Marjorie, at this point, right? But I was like, but I'm not ready yet. I'm not like, how would I do it? I don't have enough money. I don't know how to do it. I kind of created these
all the doubts and fears.
Yeah, I kind of created these like bumps in the road that weren't whether they are real or not, right? I created them. There was no one that was telling me I couldn't do it. There was no one holding me back from doing it. I was just kind of like, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know, and
Well, you bring up such a good point, because sometimes when people have someone telling them they can't do something, there's almost that contrarian element of the entrepreneurial spirit that says, I'll show you. But because I kind of came from that too, where there was no real obstacles in my life. And so I almost needed that obstacle. And it's like, without it, you'll kind of create some of your own. And that fear and doubt and imposter syndrome is fairly common. So it's interesting. How did you get through that? What did you do to get through that, overcome that?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, your shared experience there, because sometimes I wonder, and I'll never know because I can't go back in time, nor would I want to at this stage in my life, but I didn't tell a whole lot of people about this dream. So there wasn't a whole lot of people telling me I could or couldn't do it. This was all internal for me. It was this kind of internal dream that I had that I kind of kept to myself and wasn't sure, like, who should I bring it up to? Who would be able to help me through that? Who would help me work through it or talk through it? And so a lot of it was just me kind of having this dream inside my head and just not really telling anyone. So I wonder if I had put it out more and then maybe got some more pushback, it would have encouraged me to move faster on it. But to answer your question, what really changed for me was another extraordinary experience that I got, which was I was recruited to go back out to Hawaii to be the CEO of Makai HR, which was an HR outsourcing company in Honolulu. So that was my second time living out there. I was recruited out by my mentor and previous boss at ProService. His name is Dustin Sellers. And he had started this business and basically I was the hired gun CEO coming out there to professionalize, grow the business, and get it ready to sell at some point. We weren't sure what that exact timeline was, but it happened fairly quickly. Not a huge pat on my back. I mean, I was a part of it, but we had a great team and we were building a really great company, and we had a really great offer come to us to acquire us. And so we made that move and we had an exit. And so for me, that created two things for me on this path. One was it gave me some resources. So, I had, I kind of phrase it as like life-changing money, but not like never have to work again money, right? So like there was a financial transaction that happened that gave me some cushion and some capital that I could deploy in another transaction. But it wasn't to the extent where, wow, okay, I can retire now. Not that I would have, but like I can retire now. So that was one thing. And the second thing is having been CEO of that company, I realized, I can run a company. So my self-doubt that I might have had prior, like I just proved myself I could do it. So I could no longer use that as a self-created boundary or roadblock for me, because like I just did it, right? So what do you mean you can't do that again, right? And if anything, I was so excited to do it again because that exit had happened early enough in my life, my career in my life, that I wasn't, I didn't want to retire. I was ready to go back at it. I love working. I love operating. I love leading. And so it made a lot of sense at that point to start to say, okay, now is the time. Now is the time for me to go out and search for a business to buy. So that's what kind of opened that door for me, was that that great exit that we had from Makai HR, and just created this kind of path for me that said, all right, do it now. At least try now, right?
Now's your chance. You've got the financial resources, and then now you have, we call them confidence anchors, right? You have this confidence anchor that I've done it. What am I waiting for? Yep. And I would encourage people too, like a lot of times when I'm working with clients, they may not have the exact, like that's a pretty perfectly aligned confidence anchor. You may not have something that spot on, but we can draw confidence from where have I done something similar? Where have I, what skills do I need to accomplish this, and where have I deployed those skills before? Because that is one of the ways, if you recognize you have imposter syndrome, and a lot of people, I will tell you, as a coach, I see people with imposter syndrome that if you're looking from the outside looking in, you would never in a million years think this person is dealing with that. But it comes to a lot of people. And
Yes.
so if you can develop some tools in your toolkit to come up with some confidence anchors to like start to recognize, I mean, I haven't done this thing before, but I've done these things.
Right.
Excuse me. I've done these things and they take similar skill sets.
Right.
So I love that you had now a newly formed confidence anchor, and you had some cash money.
Yep.
So how did you go about this process? What happened next?
Yeah, so it was a no excuses type situation now, right? So basically, what I did was I gave myself about 2 years to do the search, and that's where I felt like I had, the resources, to not have steady income coming in, and feeling comfortable with the search expenses and things along that nature, which is pretty common in the search space where individuals are out searching for businesses. It can take.
That's a good runway. And just so other people know, what should they expect for search expenses? Like what is maybe not the exact number, but like what should people mentally prepare for if they're going to follow a similar journey?
Sure. I mean, the first thing is just paying for your own expenses, right? So whether you've got a mortgage or rent or, the car note or whatever it is, you just kind of got to cover, you shouldn't really go into debt for this. It would be, probably a good, and some people do, but that wasn't the path that I was interested in even prior to my exit when I considered this option. But then when you actually talk about deal expenses, there is some, minor things here and there. You're going to put up together a website. You're going to be doing some email marketing. You need a good Gmail account, all that good stuff, right? And so that's pretty trivial overall. Some people buy a CRM. I just used a Google spreadsheet, and that worked fine for me for my purposes.
Yep.
I sent a lot of letters, so some mailing and postage. But again, we're talking a few $100 here or there.
So you were actually finding businesses that you wanted to target and
it.
approach.
You got it. Yep.
That is awesome.
Yep.
That is, my husband and I have embarked on multifamily investing, and it's kind of that same process.
Same
it's
idea.
Like who owns the apartments around you, and you just start pinging them like,
exactly.
Ever thought about selling?
Exactly.
Okay, I love that. That gives me a better idea.
The bigger expenses when we talk about search are going to be attorney's fees, right? You are going to want to hire competent counsel that has M&A experience to help guide you through it, whether that's the letter of intent or then to the actual purchase agreement. And then I did a quality of earnings report, and so that is having somebody check the financials of the business. I got attached to this company when I started to talk to the owner, Sandy C, and I was like, I really like it. I think, but so I really wanted to have a unbiased third party double check my work on the numbers just to make sure that I wasn't like
so smart
glazing over something because I really wanted it. Type of
you
thing.
got to do your due diligence.
Yeah, it's just like buying a home, right? You have an inspection, right? You hire competent real estate attorneys and realtors and things like that to help you navigate the process. So those are the big ones as far as deal expenses are concerned. There's a lot of other things that also depends on your deal size. So larger deals, if you do like loans or SBA loans or other loan engines, or you get investors. Now you've got expenses associated to that as well. And so, there's a lot that can go into it. But for me, I felt like that 2-year mark was my runway where I felt comfortable covering my own expenses and what I, had for this.
Smart.
And just started doing the cold calls, the cold emails, working my network like crazy. Now, one thing that I did that's a little bit unique when it comes to people who are out there buying businesses is a lot of my career has been in the HR space. Starting here in Orlando at CoAdvantage in 2004, I believe I started there, 2006. And so, so when I sold the company in Hawaii and I started to do this search, I was thinking, gosh, my success rate is going to go up pretty exponentially if I buy another HR company. Right. It's just, I just know it really well. I know the client, like the type of clients that work with HR companies. I know the type of team members. I know the services that they can offer. Like, I just have so much experience in that. So I really,
your wheelhouse.
Yeah. I really focused my effort of the search on HR companies. So that was payroll companies, PEO companies, HR consulting firms, recruiting firms. I didn't touch staffing. That was outside of my scope. But like even like applicant tracking systems or pre-employment screening companies, things like that. Like, so it's kind of HR and HR tangential that I would say that I was really searching in. And my non-compete was only for the state of Hawaii. So I had 49 states by which to search, and I was willing to live anywhere. I was pretty open to that as well. But then I was out to lunch with a good friend of mine here in Orlando, Scott Milson, and he mentioned this gentleman, Sandy C, and said he might be interested in selling at this point. He's had this company at that point, it was for 58 years. And I met with Sandy, and the rest is history. I owned the company about 2 months later. So that, that is not normal. Although I do like to share that with people who are interested in buying businesses. Like you have to do all the things where you have to do all the reach outs and the cold calling and all the stuff that can feel kind of painful at times, and working with brokers and all that stuff. But then you just need to tell everybody in your network what you're doing and what you're up to.
Yes.
Because Scott wasn't like, he's not a business broker. That's not his in any way. But he's just a really great guy who wanted to connect me with somebody who I might be able to do business with. If I hadn't gone to lunch with him that day, I wouldn't own this business, right? And so I think that's just really important for us just to put it out there.
It is. And I want to highlight, you took your search to buy a business like a business itself that had income producing activities. And I was talking to another leader of a nonprofit a while back, and he was talking about his first job search, a little bit different thing, but he was talking about how he treated it like a job. And I think that there's something there. There's another gentleman we are both acquainted with, Phil, and he's a fractional CFO, and he says the same thing about when watching startups is can they get the sales activity quickly enough? It's not just about the idea and getting capital, but you've got to be showing sales. And so I think these lessons of what are essentially the income producing activities, and are you driving them? And I love that first about your story. You had the cold call income producing activities, but what I would call kind of the referral,
the networking,
warm network income producing activities that ultimately led to you finding your dream transaction, your dream, purchase.
Right.
How long did that take you? You said you bookmarked 2 years.
Yeah.
How long was it to when the deal was getting tied up?
It was only 6 months.
Or buttoned up. Wow.
I know.
Okay.
It went real fast.
That won't be everybody's case.
Not at all.
But I love that you were.
Yeah. And part of it was, I look back on it and I know a number of different people, especially now that I've bought a business, that are in this space, that have bought businesses, these small, what they call lower market, right, businesses. And that's what, the vast majority of businesses in the United States are small businesses, right? So these are the ones that, there's this phrase called the silver tsunami, and saying that there's going to be all these baby boomers that don't have anything to do with their business because they don't have a child to pass it on to, or the kids aren't interested, they don't have a succession plan. And what are they going to do when they get to the point where they can't work any longer, right? Or if something, catastrophic happens, there's going to be all these businesses that are going to turn over hands over the next 10 years or something like that. So that all is true. All the data is out there and everything. But my gosh, was I in the right place at the right time? Because I had a seller that was about to turn 80 years old and was just done, but also had a great long-term business with recurring revenue, really clean books, real high integrity guy. I got exactly what I bought, and we closed the deal within 2 months. Marjorie, none of those things are normal when you're buying a small business, right? So I was a little, spoiled or blessed or whatever you want to say as far as that. Yeah. But I'm okay with that, obviously, right? But at the same time, I don't want to give the impression that this is like this really easy thing to do, because for every story like mine, there's probably 100 where something goes sideways at some point. And whether that is you have to kill the deal the week before it closes because you found something in diligence that you just can't get past, or you can't negotiate with the seller, or you buy the business and then things start coming up that there'd be no way you could know until you actually bought the business and had the keys to the office or whatever it is, right? So that's not to scare anyone away, but I also just don't want to give this utopian experience that I had. Part of it was because I was very niche, exactly what I was looking for. I knew when I looked, because I looked at
You'd
tons of these
identified your
businesses.
ideal
Exactly.
too.
Yeah.
Yes.
At this point, even a few months in, right? Like I knew what was a disqualifier for me pretty quickly, right? Like I knew kind of what, and being in this industry since 2006, like I had a really good sense of the type of business owner and kind of how they work their business and what they're doing, right? So I kind of a little bit of that advantage because I stayed within my industry, but at the same time, I also really lucked out. Like there's no way around that. Like I just really lucked out, and I just give Sandy C, the gentleman that I bought this company from, so much credit for that because he ran a high integrity business for 44 years. Like that, you just can't make that stuff up, right? Like that you either do that or you don't as a business owner, and he did. And so I was real fortunate to come in at the right time and make a good offer for him that he was excited about, and now it's actually,
which you were able to make because of your previous
because of my
opportunity.
exit. Yeah.
I want to highlight though, because you're totally right. It may not be typical, but it can happen.
Yes.
I want to applaud you for doing your due diligence. I talked to someone else on the show a while back who said that was their biggest financial mistake, and it cost them $150,000 missing some due diligence. My husband had something similar, and this is something that can happen more when you're actively looking to purchase a business. He had something where the owner was a little bit, the person he wanted to purchase the business from was less and less willing to be transparent with the financials, and then was asking an incredibly high valuation. And so a third party was brought in. The third party didn't have any better luck getting the data. And at some point, he had put, a year and change into moving towards this purchase. But at some point, you have to be willing to walk away because you can't want it so badly that you miss that due diligence piece, or So while yours worked out, you can credit a lot of that too to looking under the hood.
Absolutely.
And you have to do that.
And don't get me wrong, like there were probably 5 or 6 deals that I went pretty far with before CHR. And I'll tell you, the most heartbreaking scenario wasn't the kind of it was terrible when you saw somebody who wasn't transparent, or where like they're hiding something, you can tell, right? And then you just walk away, and it is painful or whatever. But the ones that was the most painful for me, Marjorie, was the ones where they just either they couldn't give you the data because they were just at the point where like they just weren't as in tune with the technology. They didn't want to bring their team involved with it, things like that. Or they had this number in their head that just wasn't remotely accurate. And part of that, this is just my hypothesis on this, is I do think that there is a subsection of these business owners, particularly, starting to get into their 70s and above, that like, it's their entire,
it's their baby.
It's their baby. It's their entire personality. It's their entire identity, and they actually don't want to sell it, even though they need to or have to.
I think you're describing actually
that situation.
The situation.
So they're going to create these barriers, right? Kind of like what I did before I bought this business. I created my own barriers around it, right? So whether it is like, well, I'm just not going to share that with you, or I'm going to, if you don't want it for, 10x or whatever, you got to walk away. When the market's showing it's like 3x is the typical number for that, right? Like all these things, and they're just, but they're, and so they make it seem like it's this like business thing or whatever. But I think that part of it is they're just not willing to walk away from it because they don't know what that means to them, right? And I have a lot of empathy for that. I totally understand it, but that's really heartbreaking because, this isn't to pat myself on the back. There's a lot of searchers like me out there, but like I'm a pretty credible, good leader. Like I'm going to take really good care of your company if you sold it to me, right? I'm not private equity, not that they're always bad, but like, there's different scenarios where it can be better or worse for your company and your legacy and the long-term, stability of the organization. Like I'm a pretty good.
You even kept the name.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm going to be a really good caretaker for what you've built over the last, generations. And they just couldn't get there. Right. And so either that company is going to die with them and go into probate and become real gnarly, or somebody's going to have to throw a lowball offer right at the end, or private equity is going to come in and break it apart, right? Like, So, those were the heartbreaking ones for me, where I was like, oh man, this is a really good business. I could do a lot of really great things with it. I think you'd like working with me. I like your team. And we just couldn't get there because they created just really unnecessary barriers to being able to do a transaction. Whereas that was the exact opposite of the experience that I had with CHR.
Right.
Where Sandy was like, let's do this, right? Like I'm excited about this. I think you're a great
real
fit.
partnership.
Yeah. And to his
partnership.
credit, he reached out to a few people here in Orlando that I'd worked with in the past and kind of vetted me. And fortunately, they all
did his due diligence.
Yeah, they did. They said positive things about me, which I will always be grateful for. And just the fact we had a warm intro from Scott Milson, went a long ways from that perspective. But I still had to show him and prove to him that I was going to care for his baby, right, with this company. But he was immediately called his CPA and was like, give her anything she wants, access to any details, any financials, anything she wants, give her anything. And so that was really helpful in the process. Not everybody's going to do that, obviously. I don't even know if I would advise people to do that, but like for me, it worked. Again, I was real fortunate and it worked out really well. Still did all my diligence.
Well, it starts to show the seriousness of you two, again, being a real partnership. I understand maybe not doing that right out of the gate, but you really do have to. And the tragic thing, you're talking about the thing that breaks your heart, and I totally agree with you. The other tragic thing that I see is at some point, someone can't run the business the same way they always did, right? At what, I don't want to totally say it's an age thing, but age and health and all sorts of other things. And so by withholding that or clinging so much to something, what ends up happening is these businesses, you talked about probate, but sometimes they even die before they get to that place.
Yeah.
And that's heartbreaking for me is you could have had a nice retirement nest egg from that by finding a good partner.
Absolutely.
I'm really curious about both the, you talked a little bit about the back and forth. He gave you, his CPA a directive to give you whatever you needed to make an educated decision. How did you talk me through just even like negotiations and then even the transfer of relationships and clients and like talk me through all that kind of that from the tail end of negotiations to maybe the first 6 months of this now being in your hands.
Yeah. So again, probably not a common story, but he didn't negotiate really at all. I gave him a very fair offer for where the business was at. It was its current trajectory, and so he accepted it. There wasn't any back.
Did you
and
give
forth.
a justification of this is why I'm offering this, or
A very high level one? He didn't push back at all. So and he did not hire a attorney until the week before close to even look at the purchase agreement. So again, Marjorie, this is not a normal situation by any means, and not how I would recommend a business owner sell their business. But hey, it worked out well for him. It worked out well for me, so I can't complain about that.
When you both were coming to this in very good faith.
Yes. Oh, very good. Yes. Yep.
A lot of people are, but sometimes people aren't.
Yep.
So that's why we need attorneys and things like that.
A lot of trust, but also we got it all documented, right? Both things there. So it was an asset sale. So really, at the end of the day, what I was acquiring was the brand, the customer contracts with recurring monthly fractional HR services, like the email, the website, all that good stuff, right? And then I brought over the employees at the time into the new business. And so there wasn't a ton of, because this is an very asset light business, there wasn't a ton of like, I need a bunch of keys to trucks, or off. And even before I bought it, fully remote. He went fully remote during COVID, so there wasn't even an office space. All the files were electronic, right? Like, just a lot of those things, again, which made it pretty simple. But so I had to go out, set up my own bank accounts, my own QuickBooks account, just get everything basic started. And then on the first day the day after I acquired the business, it was actually 2 years ago today. So we sent out invoices, and instead of having
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah. Instead of having to be his LLC, it went out in mine. and very similar name. And so like that was fine. And we were pretty limited in our client communications as far as like all these big things, changes are happening. Really all that it was he reached out to a handful of his close connections. Some of these clients have been with him for, 30, 40 years. So he reached out to them and let them know like, hey, I'm looking forward to retiring. Marci's great. Like, you're not going to see any big changes, right? I'm really excited about this. Just a real positive message to those folks. Mm-hmm. No pushback on that. We did send out one client-wide email to let them know about the change. No pushback on that. And really, I spent the first 90 days just really getting to know the business. I didn't want to come in and make a ton of changes or have them feel like my mantra was stability. Like, I had it written on a sticky note, like just keep everything stable, right? Like this business has been running for, at that point, 58 years. I don't need to come in here and mess with it a ton on day one, right? Like there's nothing that I'm going to do.
Obviously it was successful.
Yeah, on day one that like is going to move the needle here, right? So like, get the word out to my network that I'm doing this now and, kind of can start to pursue that. But really, as far as the clients were concerned, the team, that sort of thing, it was stability. And then we did make some changes on the team. We do still have Sissy Egan, who's been with us now 22 years with the company, which is fantastic. And we brought on a senior HR consultant in Robert Chanel, and we've got a recruiter. And, so we just got some really fantastic people that are delivering at a very high quality of HR consulting. So I think the clients are noticing that, right? They're seeing if anything, they're seeing more value in what they are getting from CHR. And that's exciting to hear the feedback and to see how well we're delivering to our clients.
How many employees did you transition with?
Yeah, I had one.
Ballpark.
Sissy was the only W-2 employee. The rest were contractors. Okay. And so I kind of shifted that a little bit to be more W-2 employees. I just felt like that was a better model for what I was, trying to accomplish as far as culture and like delivery and things along that nature. So we've got 2 full-time HR consultants currently, and I do have still some contractors that I bring in on specialty projects we worked on a banking compensation project where like I know a woman who's excellent at that, right? Or some really detailed paychecks issues or whatever. Like we can come in and I know somebody who can do that, right? So but I'm very transparent with our clients when we're doing that. But yeah, so our team is very small and lean. We've got 2 full-time employees, we've got 2 part-time employees, and me. And
how was that transition? How did he set expectations with them? And obviously, you said your goal was stability, but how did you then start to like?
Again, super unique. He introduced me to Sissy the week after he and I first chatted.
Okay.
Usually that does not happen, right? Usually you don't bring employees into something, even key employees, until a couple weeks before close because you don't want to spook them or they start to ask for stuff or things like that, right? But she was in immediately on it. And then the contractors all knew at least a month out before close, if not 6 weeks. I mean, very early in the process. Again, that is not normal at all with the transaction. So yeah, a very unique experience about that. But that, gave them the ability to get to know me, ask questions, build rapport, build respect, both ways from that perspective. But yeah, that's again, not
his ability to be transparent with Sissy and others really speaks to the culture and leadership he had, that it was from a place of trust because, a lot of times we withhold clarity because we're afraid of what oversharing might lead to. Yeah. But when people get a whiff of something going on, it actually, it increases distrust so much.
Agreed.
And gossip and, maybe people starting to look, oh, something's going on. I don't know what it is. So I'm going to put my feelers out there so I really appreciate, I don't even know him, but I really appreciate that he had created such a culture where trust and transparency were so important.
Yes.
It just sounds incredible and obviously a great match for the both of you.
Right.
Not always the case, but hopefully business owners who are thinking of selling maybe can take a page out of his book too and say, and see how that really aided the transition to you, which made it even more valuable. Yeah. Right? That you were getting a smooth transition.
Absolutely. And you're so right on that. It was a good fit for us because as you've mentioned a couple times now, so my personal core values are trust and transparency. And so when, and that's been mine for the vast majority of my career, once I've kind of established that as being really important to me. And that's not only just personally or professionally, but also personally in my personal life. And so when I was, connecting with Sandy and saw that was, I don't know that he ever articulated it that way, but that we were both being very transparent, that we were both looking to build trust with each other, whatever, like that felt like, oh, wow, this is a really good, like, I'm going to be taking over a company that is familiar with those things that I like as far as leadership is concerned.
Yes.
There were certainly stylistic differences and things like that. Don't get me wrong, but like we're starting from a place of that commonality, which is really, which did make the process move by quickly because,
that's an interesting point.
Yeah. So I don't know, I don't know how you vet for that or if that's important or not, but I think it's more for what you were talking about as far as if you're considering selling your business is like truly being transparent. Like it might create some challenges in selling your business, but most of those are pretty overcomeable. And I'm not a business broker, so maybe they would have a different opinion about that or whatever, right? But like if you can put it out there and deal with it and negotiate around it, like you can usually get to an agreement. It's when you try and hide it and it gets caught in diligence.
Yes.
I had a friend who just went through this recently and they were a couple weeks out from close and the seller did not disclose something. It was caught in diligence and now you've lost the trust, right? It was something that they should have told.
Totally.
They should have put out front. If they had put out front, they could have worked through it and come to a resolution on it. But the fact that they tried to hide it, like that stuff's going to come out. And if it doesn't come out before the sale, it's going to come out after the sale. And now we got another problem, right? Now we're being bogged down with litigation instead of running this new business that you've just gotten the keys to, right? So just like be honest and tell folks. And again, I'm not a business broker, so they might tell you not to do that, right? Like don't take my advice totally on that. But
you've been through it.
I sold a business and I bought a business, and it worked for me very well. And like that's just who I am. And so I just have a hard time not having those things as being a part of how I work, both personally and professionally.
Yes.
And so for me, it has been a benefit for me.
Well, and I would say what I love is you guys were aligned on values. You didn't necessarily seek that out, although having the referral from the friend probably helped because, birds of a feather. But one of the things I would say just from hearing you talk about this situation is if you're selling a business or if you're looking to buy a business, do your best to identify what your core values are.
Yeah.
If you haven't thought of not what you want them to be, but what they actually are.
Right.
Look back on your behavior patterns of the past several years as a business person and what do you really value? And then be asking questions of your buyer or your seller, whoever, whatever side you're on, trying to find if there's at least some overlap, some synergy there, because the transaction will be made notably more difficult if you're not aligned on those core values, right? If you're a high 100%. Trust person and they kind of want to see what they can get away with, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
If you value team culture and somebody feels like, there's always someone $10 cheaper and 10 times better around the corner, you're not going to align on certain things. And so the more we can try to find value synergy, values overlap, both in buying, selling businesses, but this can go out to our clients as well,
Sure.
the people we hire.
Yep.
The people we hire. It doesn't mean you have to be clones of each other. We do want differences, but values, I see more challenges in human to human relationships when there's a values mismatch.
Agreed.
So you're bringing up a really good point that I would have never thought of.
Yeah.
But if you are going to buy or sell a business, be in tune with what your values are and be looking for some of that overlap from the other party. So you've been 2 years in business now, and tell me what have been some of the bright spots, but also what have been some of the challenges. I know even the smoothest business is not without challenges on a somewhat regular basis. So tell me what you've experienced.
Yeah. So working with my team has been incredible, and we've got wonderful clients. Like I said before, some of them have been with us for 40 plus years. It's
incredible.
Yeah, it's really special. And so just continuing to work with these really great organizations here in Central Florida and all across the country. We're in about 30 states, and just seeing the value that we can bring to them, actually helping them, helping their employees, like that's very rewarding. From a lifestyle perspective, like I built this business and sought for search for a business that would allow me to also to travel and to be able to work from anywhere and spend time with my family and friends that aren't here locally, which has been a real plus for me over the last 2 years. So some challenging components. So, when I acquired the business 2 years ago, there had not been any price increases for current clients in over 10 years, some for decades. And so, one of the first kind of major projects that I went through was starting to right price our legacy clients, and even them, like they're still paying well below market. But we'll get there eventually with that. And I wanted to prove some value to them too, right? So give and take from that perspective. So we've gotten to a really good place for that. Unsurprisingly, right? Like they understood, right? It'd been many, many years of not having an increase, and I would say maybe we lost 2 or 3 clients during that entire initiative. And I started with 80, so that's great. Like I'll take that all day long.
You have to not be afraid.
Right? No. And one of them was
you have to not be afraid of that.
Yeah, one of them was actually a like on paper was a pretty good sized contract, but to what they were utilizing us for, we were losing so much money on them. So it's like, oh, cool. This is a great partner. Look at how much money they're paying us every year. But when we did the analysis and saw how many hours that they were utilizing for us, I mean, it was like multiple full-time HR people worth, like it's just, okay. So I went back to them and said, here's what the rate would be, still a very competitive rate. And they decided to go another direction. That was a blessing for us because we were getting pulled down in their direction without getting compensated for it, which gave us capacity to take on the new clients that we brought on and really deliver at a very high level. A lot of times,
I want to touch on this a little bit more because, again, it can be really scary. I had a client one time that we walked through, and the same thing, although he didn't sell the business, he was in the business, but he'd had some clients that in his entirety never increased or kept prices up with market rate. And in some cases, he had to go in and more than double, in some cases, even triple their rate to get up to that. And we had to talk through the language, and we had to talk through how do you don't want to frame it. Nobody wants to feel like they're having smoke blown up their hiney. Right. But at the same time, as a business owner, you do have to make fiscal business decisions that keep the business healthy. Right. So how did you frame that conversation with some people, and how did you mentally prepare for, because that can be challenging for you. How did you mentally prepare for having those conversations? How did you mentally prepare that there might be some fall off from those conversations?
Yeah, a big piece was preparing the team, right? And saying like, so at the end of this year, we're going to have fewer clients, we're going to have more revenue. And so that's going to be a good thing for us, right? So like, not losing a single client was going to be devastating, right? Like client retention is obviously very critical and very important. But if we weed out some of the ones that are just undervaluing the work that we're doing, like that's not a bad thing. So really over communicating that and having conversations with the team around it, I think was good because I just didn't want to give this like doom and gloom scenario of like, oh no, we're losing all these clients or whatever. Like, are we going under or whatever? Oh no, but look at the new ones we're bringing in and the price point difference, right? And so it does make sense.
And I loved your transparency with your team on that.
Yes.
Like setting proper expectations whenever there's going to be a change it can be scary to do, but it needs to happen. So again, hat tip for you to do that with the team first and just mentally prepare them. And about how many clients did you have to have, either percentage or number that you had to have a pricing conversation?
About 60%. It was quite a few. Yeah, it was a big chunk. And again, like I wasn't unreasonable with the increases. But they were fair. And most of them were like, okay, there was no pushback at all. Like, we get it, and fine. You're still giving us value. The ones that I had to have a conversation with, that was fine. They were productive conversations. A lot of it's just like, hey, you're a service business too. Are you telling me you haven't raised your rates in 10 years? Like that, no one is saying yes to that, right? Like everyone is in the same boat as far as that's concerned. So, I just got to keep up with the labor and how much I need to pay my team and, the other expenses that we have associated with this business. Like I just can't give away this service, right? And also here's all the value. And I think, when it comes to fractional, we're very intentionally not looking to send HR people packing, right? Like we want to work collaboratively with HR people. So a lot of our clients have internal HR, and we, come in on a fractional leadership level and things like that. So showing them the value that we're bringing to the table and how much it would cost them to hire that person full time, is also a pretty compelling conversation that we have, with folks that might have had a little bit of pushback there, but there wasn't much of it. And, I guess, how did I prepare for it? I knew, of course, there was risk to it, but I think the biggest thing for me of just preparing for those conversations was like, I'm so confident in what we're delivering and the value we're bringing to companies that, like, if you're gonna go back and forth with me over a few $100 a month or whatever, like, we'll just leave. You know what I mean? Like, this
Maybe not a fit.
This isn't, yeah, exactly. If you're truly not seeing the value of what my team is bringing to you, like, we don't need you, like, it's not.
So confidence in your value,
Yes, yeah.
But then also I would say, it sounds to me like you did this, maybe whether you knew it or not, it's not only, okay, so I have to think about what we're going to do, but what happens if we don't do it? What does that look like?
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So in the case
Much
of the
worse.
client where you were like, if we keep losing money on this particular client who, ties up a lot of our full-time hours,
yeah.
and we stay doing that, it's actually holding us back
You got it.
from other clients, potentially even giving employees what they're worth because we're sucking resources over here. So I think sometimes when people are afraid to do something, even though in their mind they know it's the right thing, that the business needs them to do it, we're forgetting to look at what's the cost of not doing it.
Yeah.
If we just continue and
great
don't
point.
pull the plug, and that's so important. So I love that you took it head on and just like knew that it was the right thing to do. And if it's the right thing, it's on your plate to do it as the
Sure.
as the leader, as the CEO, as the owner. So
Yeah. And I don't want to give
Way
the
to
impression
go.
that it wasn't scary at moments, right? Like when you're throwing out all these notes or whatever, you're like, wow, if every single one of these goes, I'm going to be in trouble. But I just knew they weren't. And I think the, funny anecdotal thing, right, is that large client that left, they came back this year and they're like, well, maybe we want to come back. And I was like, okay, well, it's going to be even more now. Like I just, and they didn't. And that was fine. Because
Confidence.
again, I'm just not going to lower my bar to bring somebody back on that I know is going to, but they could see the value, right? Like, so they keep kind of, and we've already talked to them again this year, right? Like they see the value because they've gone to a much lower cost offshore solution and they're like, we're not happy with that, right? Like they don't get us, they don't understand it. It feels like a call center. I'm like, yeah, you are getting, like that exists out there. That is absolutely an HR component you can go out and buy, but you're going to get what you pay for. And with us, you're getting people with a minimum of 20 years of HR experience, like HR experts, like there's value in that. So you got to pay for that experience, right? And so I don't need to I don't need to oversell that to anyone. You're either going to move forward with us on that or not, and you're going to see the value in it or not. But the clients that are with us really see the value, and even the ones that have left are like, let's see if we can figure out a way to make it work again. So I'm always game for that. I have no ill will, no burning of bridges or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, again, this is what our current rate is.
That's the beauty of parting ways as friends,
amicably.
and not being passive aggressive about something and burning a bridge,
not
either
worth
them
it.
or you is you can always come back. Like,
It's never
I'm gonna
worth
treat
it
you
to
just
me.
as fair then as I am now, and I love it. Well, I think the biggest takeaway that I hope people hear is really your confidence that you put in your value, knowing we provide all this value. This is the right thing to charge for the value that we are providing.
Yep.
And that is so huge. Marci, I want to ask you one last question. Obviously, we're titled Relentless Pursuit, and I'm always so eager to talk to business owners like you who have just been relentlessly pursuing their dreams and their vision and their goals. What has helped you become more relentless in your life? What has inspired you, or who? It could be a who as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think about my parents, my mom and her, entrepreneurial spirit, even though she wouldn't
Love that.
call it that, right? She didn't have the words or the terms for that, but like just her drive to make a better life for our
Yes.
family. And my dad as well, very driven. He did Ironmans and adventure races, and he'd climb Mount Rainier. Like he's so just like they're both very disciplined. They're both very they're go-getters. They're ambitious. business in different ways than I am, but I definitely like saw that growing up, and I think that those are great traits that I've inherited and also saw modeled for me as I was growing up. And even my dad today, you know, he's almost 80 and he still goes for a 1 mile ruck every day with a backpack with 15-pound weight in it. Like, I mean,
Go
yeah,
Dad.
exactly. So, and my mom plays pickleball and golfs constantly, right? Like, so they're just still, you know, very active.
Is mom still screen printing at all?
She's not. No, she
Okay.
exited that business, you know, back when I was in high school, but then went on to like general contract houses. I mean, she's just a Jill of all
Oh my
trades. Yeah,
gosh.
she's incredible. And so just a really great there. So it'd be
Incredible role models.
Yeah, I certainly was. I don't want to say destined, but certainly set up to succeed in that way by seeing two folks that just like would get up early in the morning and go get their workout on before they started working, and would work really hard at their jobs, and you know, would work after school and coach and, you know, just do all these other things and train and all that. And I just saw all of that, and so I think that was, you know, set me up for a good shot at being successful here. Now, I took a very different path of not going into the public education system like both of them were in. So a lot of times, you know, I'm talking to them about stuff and they're like, we have no idea what you're talking about. But they are very supportive still and are my number one fans for sure. And so I think they helped me create just a mindset of just keep at it, keep trying, don't give up. Know when to give up when it's too far gone, right? Know when to walk away. But more importantly is like, don't do that just because it's hard. Do it when it's the right thing to do from a risk or business perspective, but like not just because it's hard or uncomfortable. Keep pushing on those things. And I think that's what helped me to get to a point where I felt quote unquote ready to buy this business. Was I kept pushing. I didn't give up when it was hard. I didn't give up when I got discouraged. And I landed with this, you know, really truly the best scenario possible for me with acquiring CHR and you know, kind of no looking back now.
I think that is such a great story to hear about your parents. Thank you for sharing. And Marci, where can people find you?
Sure.
And where can they find CHR?
Sure. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. Please follow me, make a connection. So I'm always posting stuff on there that I think is like, for me as a business owner, what you know, what I care about as far as HR is concerned. So it's not like the, you know, deep diving into really specific HR topics, but it's like, hey, I own a business. Like, I actually have to care about these high level things. Like here's where I'd want to bring in an expert. I want to bring my HR person in. So things along that nature. And then CHR, you can find us at SEAYHR.com. That's our website. And yeah, reach out to us from there. Contact us if you have any questions, if we can help you with anything. Fractional HR project work like compliance or handbooks or employee investigations, all that good stuff. We're there. Our team is, just like I said, just really fantastic, and I'm happy to help however we can.
Love it. Well, Marci LaRouech, CHR, thank you so much for joining me today and just being such an example of resilience and relentless pursuit. It was so great connecting with you.
Thanks, Marjorie.
Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to Relentless Pursuit with Marjorie Dudley. If you want to build discipline, resilience, and results in your own work, that's what I help leaders and entrepreneurs do through coaching, speaking, and training. If today's conversation got you thinking about how you'd like to show up, you can find me through the links in the show notes. Until next time, stay relentless.